Imagine waking up in the dark, unable to move, your screams muffled by dirt and wood. You're trapped, buried alive. This is the horrifying story of a man who lived through everyone's worst nightmare. A story that will make you shiver every time you think about what's under the ground. Act 1. The accident. Meet David, a regular guy from a small town. He was friendly, hardworking, and loved by everyone who knew him. But one evening, while driving home after work, his life took a sudden, horrifying turn. A car swerved into David's lane, and he lost control. His car flipped into a ditch, leaving him unconscious. When the paramedics arrived, they checked his pulse and declared him dead. But they were wrong. David wasn't dead. He was alive, paralyzed, unable to move or speak, trapped inside his own body. Act 2. The burial. David's family arranged a funeral, heartbroken by the sudden tragedy. Little did they know he could hear every sob, every word of goodbye. He tried to scream, to move, but his body wouldn't respond. His worst fear became reality when the casket lid was closed, shutting him in total darkness. The sound of the lid being nailed shut echoed in his ears like a final, cruel goodbye. David was buried 6 feet underground, fully conscious. His nightmare had just begun. Act 3. The horror of being trapped. Imagine the sheer terror of waking up in a coffin, realizing you're alive but buried under tons of dirt. That's what happened to David. At first he thought it was a bad dream, but the suffocating heat and the smell of earth made it clear this was real. David clawed at the wood above him, splinters tearing into his fingers. He screamed until his throat was raw, but no one could hear him. The only sounds were his heartbeat and the occasional creak of the coffin. Minutes felt like hours. Hours felt like days. His breathing became shallow as the air grew thinner. Panic consumed him, but there was no escape. Act 4. The unexpected twist. Meanwhile, back at the cemetery, a gravedigger noticed something strange. The ground above David's grave was slightly sunken, as if it had been disturbed. Curious, he decided to investigate. At the same time, David felt a faint vibration above him. Hope surged through his veins as he heard the sound of a shovel striking the dirt above his coffin. He banged weakly on the lid, desperate to signal he was alive. The gravedigger froze. He thought he imagined the sound, but then he heard it again. A faint, rhythmic tapping. His hands shook as he dug faster, the sound growing louder with each strike. Act 5. The rescue. When the coffin was finally uncovered, the gravedigger opened it to find David alive, gasping for air. His fingers were bloodied, his voice barely a whisper, but he was alive. David was rushed to the hospital, where doctors were stunned. He'd suffered from a rare condition called locked-in syndrome, which made him appear dead, despite being fully conscious. He had survived his worst nightmare. Act 6. The aftermath. Although David recovered, the experience left him deeply traumatized. He said the worst part wasn't the fear of dying, it was the loneliness, the feeling of being forgotten in the dark. David's story serves as a chilling reminder of how fragile life can be, and how sometimes the scariest things aren't what's in the dark, but what's waiting for us when we wake up. Would you survive being buried alive? Or would the fear consume you? Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more terrifying tales. And remember, sometimes the scariest nightmares are the ones we can't escape.